Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons.
Here.
Councilmember Reinecker.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember Zimmer.
Here.
Councilmember Jacksetic.
Here.
Councilmember Litzo is absent. Councilmember McLean.
Here.
Since we have no introductions, recognitions, or presentations tonight, we're going to move to public hearings. At this time, the council will recess to conduct a public hearing regarding a request for a zoning text amendment on sidewalk requirements under section 25-69A2. Mr. Hawes, who will present this to the council?
Although.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Hessel. Do you have any
So,
exhibits?
I do, Mayor, thanks. Exhibit 1 is an affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in St. Louis County. And Exhibit 2 is an affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 3 is a report of the Planning and Zoning, is a memo to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Jonathan Raish dated October 16, 2024. Exhibit 4 is a report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated October 17, 2024. In which, after a presentation by staff on a city-initiated zoning code text amendment on sidewalk requirements under section 25-69A2, the commission failed to recommend approval by a vote of 3-5. And Exhibit 5 is a code of ordinances of the city of Kirkwood. I will note that because the commission recommended denial, a favorable vote of 2/3 of all members of the city council is required for approval.
Mr. Hawes, who will present the issue to the city council?
That'll be Planning and Development Services Director Jonathan Raish.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So as stated, this is a request for a zoning code text amendment. And that's on the wrong one. I'm gonna go there we go. All right. Regarding sidewalk requirements in our code. So this provision in the code that we're talking about, section 25-69A2. The whole provision is there on the screen. I'm not going to read it. Hopefully, if you have questions, you can let me know. But so this provision was put into the code in 2021 when we revamped the entire zoning and subdivision code. And it is to require, well, the provision that was added was to require sidewalks, the installation of sidewalks on residential properties that did large additions or additions that increased or doubled the size of the home. So that part was added in 2021 with a goal of further implementing the city's sidewalk network as identified in the city's pedestrian and bicycle plan. This was the requirement to add sidewalk was previously in existence for new construction or redevelopment of infill properties. And is a common practice across many municipalities. Again, so this went through and was put in after recommendation from the subcommittee that worked on the revamping of the code at that time through 2019. It was delayed by COVID in 2020 and then adopted in 2021. And the discussion at that time was the general idea that if someone was doubling the size of their house and investing enough or that much into the property, and changing the property that drastically, that it would warrant the requirement for public benefit of the sidewalk, much like a new home did previously and still does. So that was the rationale at the time. And recently, staff was requested to prepare an amendment to look at removing the requirement for additions, for large additions, those that double the size of the house, removing that requirement from the code. So this is the language that staff has drafted to accommodate that request. And it would be simply removing that from the list of activities that would require the installation of the sidewalk. So this proposal was made to the Planning and Zoning Commission, presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. There was some discussion at Planning and Zoning Commission. Ultimately, the majority of them, as it was mentioned earlier, there were 3 in favor and 5 opposed. So the 5 opposed generally cited Like the original rationale for the requirement was that they, on projects of that scale, then certainly we can remove it from the code. So I think it's a pretty straightforward proposition, but I'm available. So there's no applicant on this one, no other presentations. I'm available for questions.
Does council have any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Does the staff always tell the homeowner that's applying, or if they come back in for an addition and they change what they're doing, does the staff immediately explain to them that the sidewalk extra is going to go on or not? I may be paraphrasing it.
Sure, yeah. So the burden is, well, so the staff will, if we get plans that don't meet our code during our plan review, we provide comments back to them. The professional designers that are doing the project, they have the responsibility to read our code and to know what our requirements are.
Okay.
So by the time that we get their plans, I mean, if they come to us early and ask us questions, we certainly tell them.
That's
But
what I'm asking.
Yeah, if they ask questions and say, hey, I'm going to do this addition, and if they say it's going to double the size of our house, then as much as we can. I mean, we have X hundred pages of code, so it's not really something that we can summarize. But if they ask a direct question, we don't hide it. The burden is on them to do their research and know the requirements. But the final check is when they submit their plans to us, and at that point, they're obviously designed. But that's when they would find out if they're doubling the size of the house and they haven't put a sidewalk on it. We would tell them you have to install a sidewalk.
And if they come back to you for an additional add-on that would require that more than 100%.
After if they
Proved it, and they would come back and say, hey, we're gonna add.
if it's still part of the same project. So yeah, if they revise their plans, yeah, if they increase the scope of their plans, like if they're expanding by 95% and it didn't trigger the sidewalk requirement, and then before they start, or even during construction, if they change the plans during that permit process, we would have to tell them at that point, either we can't approve your amendment to increase the size if you don't want to do the sidewalk, or if you're going to increase it, then you have to do it. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Then this is public property that the sidewalk would go on.
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, it's in the right of way, the public right of way, that sidewalk would be
We're
installed.
requiring a homeowner to put in a sidewalk that anywhere else the city of Kirkwood would be putting in.
No.
Is that correct?
No. So for new construction and redevelopment of properties across the city, we require the builder who is building something generally in Kirkwood for a homeowner to put it in the right of way. So it's the same thing. We're treating the person who's going from a 1,500 square foot house to a 3,000 square foot house the same way we're requiring somebody building a 3,000 square foot house. Or subdivisions.
Councilmember Reinecker.
So this came up from that house that we looked at on the corner, right? Okay. If this guy has to put a sidewalk in, it would be a sidewalk leading to nowhere, stalling his property, and then it ends and there's no sidewalk on the rest of the street all the way down to Geyer, right? Isn't there another way to get around this rather than to change the code? Isn't there somebody who can bless common sense?
So respectfully, it doesn't lead to nowhere. So there are sidewalks across Geyer. There is a curb ramp existing now that leads north and east. So this would be a 150-foot extension of the sidewalk that goes from multiple blocks to the east, and you would connect to that. And this is an identified route on our pedestrian route. And so you get the 150 feet that would eventually lead to the very popular Kirkwood Park, and would provide safer pedestrian access. So the decision that was discussed when this was put in originally, and it's just a philosophical debate. If you want to make incremental progress, then this is the way to do it, by requiring things to be built piece by piece. The example was brought up during the discussions in 2019. There are multiple blocks in Kirkwood that have been redeveloped wholly, and we missed out on those opportunities to get gaps in the sidewalk network installed because we didn't require them at that time. So when there is so much redevelopment happening, this is a very practical way to accelerate the implementation of our pedestrian network.
What street is this, Monroe?
Now
East-West Street?
it's Van Buren and Jefferson.
Jefferson, okay.
Yeah,
So you're saying on the south side of Jefferson, there's sidewalks?
across Van Buren on the east side.
East side, but not on the side where the house is.
Right, but his connects. So that's the way the pedestrian, like at the intersection, he would connect, his sidewalk would be, if you cross, it connects to the east, and then there's sidewalks to the north along Jefferson.
Next to a street is what it would connect to.
A crosswalk in the street to the sidewalk.
He would go from the corner west, correct? On
Yep.
down Jefferson.
Yep.
And at the end of his property, there's no sidewalk.
It connects to a crosswalk that connects to the rest of the sidewalk network. A crosswalk across, so you're calling it the street, right? So there's a pedestrian path through the street that's east, yeah,
So
across the
I'm
street.
talking about going west, Jonathan.
Yeah, there's nothing west currently. Yep.
That's what I'm saying. So you're asking this guy to put a sidewalk in that's going to end at his property.
No, I'm not asking it. The city code requires him
But I'm
because,
not- okay,
because
said it
he's-
wrong. If
be-
We would require him to do that.
because this is a path, it's not everywhere. So the other parts of these provisions, it's if it's on a pedestrian path identified in our plan. Yeah.
My question, isn't there another way besides changing the code? Just say,
Not the way the code is now. So the only provision for a waiver is if there's not enough space in the right of way and there is adequate space in the right of way. Now, now for this person, it was waived. This one person that brought this up, he's not being required to do it.
Well, it's because it's right there under two, the Public Works or Public Services Director can.
Waive it.
If there's not enough existing right of way, and that is not true in this case.
But this is going forward. It's not we're after this particular one permitted house that we're talking about that we're Alameda.
So this is, yeah, what's being proposed, what staff was asked to prepare
Yes.
was an amendment to the code that would not require it going forward.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
And there was a potential conflict with the trees in the right of way. And, we would have to go through a process for those to be approved to be removed. So again, as we look at both maintaining our street trees and canopy and, that would have been the next kind of battle in that particular situation. And, I think, like you said, the code is pretty robust and cumbersome, and for homeowners to be able to drill down into every piece of that, it just makes it clear. Just
They hire professionals. I mean, they have engineers and architects. That's who they pay to do it. So, and it's the same thing. So the tree, that's the debate that councils for decades have had is when we have sidewalk projects and if the city does, we take trees out because we want sidewalks. And if a new construction were to happen on the same property, they would be required to take the trees out by the code. So it's just the balance.
Any other questions? Yes.
As someone that
McLean.
actually does have a sidewalk in the front yard that leads to nowhere,
Mhm.
I'm in favor of this because we have the sidewalk in my yard, in my front yard, and my neighbor's front yard on Dixon. And no one else on that side of the street has it. It's just, I don't understand why it's there.
Mhm.
And we've had new houses built on our side of Dixon, but those new houses do not have sidewalks. Part of the Kirkwood pedestrian and bicycle plan. So anyway,
Didn't add on 100%.
yeah, no, the new homes, complete.
Complete new homes. Yeah.
So that's why I'm in favor of this lane.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jonathan. Now we'll move into public comments. David, has anyone completed a card to speak regarding this proposal?
Mayor and council, there are no requests for comment on this item.
I think we have somebody that did want to, but maybe didn't know about filling out a card. Okay.
Hey, well, Justin Bradley.
That's the small print.
We're flexible, we're flexible.
Yeah, it's the small print. Well, thank you and good evening to all of you, and thank you for all of your time and energy, all of your positions here in the Kirkwood community. We really appreciate it. I've come before you in order to talk this evening about my personal experience with the feedback to this council regarding our family's historic home. My wife grew up most of her life in this incredible community with a longing to raise a family here, and it may seem that it was probably included even in our wedding vows that we were going to live here. And so when we found a 1906 home at the corner of Jefferson and Van Buren, she asked me what I thought of it. And I said, it sure is old, but it has amazing charm and the location is just second to none. She asked me, sorry, that was in August of 2004. And moving in, raising 3 kids, saving up, dreaming, and wanting to add on to this old girl was such conveniences as, insulation, maybe add a second bathroom, a sump pump. We dreamed and we worked and we planned and we had to deal with setbacks, supply issues, such things like that. And one item which we did not believe would affect us in these setbacks was for us to be required to install a sidewalk where one had never existed and would end up leading to nowhere. And I'm sorry, it would dead end into our neighbor's yard, into our neighbor's property line, and then our subsequent neighbors all the way down to Geyer. It would affect not only their front yards, but even their front garage doors, their driveways. The pitch of the driveway would be inadequate for a sidewalk. Sorry. This sidewalk was supposed to be 5 feet wide and 6 inches deep, which is very, it would not be the same as the other sidewalks, the one on the north side of the street or any other sidewalk in our area. And it would require us to remove 4 trees and then be set back 6 to 8 feet from the West Jefferson property line, which is city easement, and would be added to our construction cost. It blindsided us, and we were very concerned about the common sense and the logic behind this code. I looked through the code myself. Our architect, who's done work in Kirkwood, Webster, has looked through the code. I've perused it, and that 100% line is really hard to find in all that code. And we are over by, I believe, 48 square feet. Our original house was 1,172 square feet. And we are adding just a little bit more. And bathrooms are definitely helpful with 3 daughters. So we bought our concerns, not only for our home, but also for the community. That sidewalk for years would, if people rode their bikes down or were traveling down, would then have to cross in the middle of the street on Jefferson, where there is no stop sign at Jefferson and Van Buren. We met with community members and talked to neighbors. We even met with Mayor Gibbons and our contractor at our house on after 5 o'clock on a Friday, the very day that her granddaughter was born. We did not reach an agreement there on that afternoon, except that we would all kind of do some looking and try to reconvene the next Friday at Green Tree. So some time passed, some emails did. Mayor Gibbons was able to call my wife on a Monday and let us know that we would not be required to install that sidewalk to nowhere, which there is an Instagram page called Where the Sidewalk Ends, Kirkwood. And there are photos of all the sidewalks that end abruptly. We are very ecstatic about the crossing and the pedestrian crossings that have been installed on Geyer, especially after the passing of Mr. Schaefer at the corner of Jefferson and Geyer. And we're grateful to be living in this community that our friends and family love coming to, especially because they can walk safely around this area. When looking for that code, And when looking at the provisions of that code, it seems like common sense really does need to kind of prevail in certain situations. When you have a 1906 house being built with no sidewalk, and then our neighbors, the houses behind us were built on a wooded lot in the the early 90s. Those sidewalks weren't required, and the construction of their homes, they're all over 3,000, 4,000 square feet. The thought of doubling those at this time could be a possibility, but it would be very difficult to keep that code going with 100% additions. Most of the homes in Kirkwood that are less than 2,500 square feet are torn down to build something else. And we just like being able to have that side yard that we would really hate to lose more trees. We've already had to take down some very big oak trees. And speaking of the canopy, like, we're trying to not only save trees, but we're planning to grow more. Thank you very much for your time, and I certainly appreciate all of your help and hard work serving this council in this city.
You. Do we have any more comment cards?
Mayor and council, there are no additional ones for this public hearing.
Okay, great, thank you. Does the council have any further questions or comments? Okay, hearing no further discussion, this public hearing is now closed. The bill will be on the December 19th council meeting agenda for first reading consideration. All right, and now we will, at this time, the council will recess again to conduct a public hearing regarding a request for a zoning code text amendment on the color temperature of outdoor lighting under section 2552. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to continue this public hearing to the December 19th, 2024 City Council meeting.
We have to open the public hearing, offer the exhibits, and then make a motion to continue. Because we already opened, you have to open it and then offer the exhibits, and then you can move to continue.
Okay, so that you're up.
Very well put, Mayor. Thanks, Mayor. The exhibit 1 is the affidavit of publication verifying that notice of public hearing appeared in the St. Louis County. Exhibit 2 is the affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 3 is a memorandum from Jonathan Raish to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated November 6, 2024. Exhibit 4 is the report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated November 7, 2024. In which by a vote of 6-1, the commission recommended approval of a city-initiated zoning code text amendment on the color temperature of outdoor lighting. And Exhibit 5 is the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kirkwood.
Now, can we use that motion in second? Yep. Okay.
Historically, the question is, what do we do about if someone in the audience wants to speak on the matter? Historically, we have allowed them to speak, recognizing that the matter in all likelihood will be continued. So if they want to hold their comments and can appear at the next council meeting, they may elect to do so, or they can speak this evening. That's the way we've done it. You don't have to do it that way.
Do we have any cards, David?
Mayor and council, we have no request for comment on this item.
That's even easier.
Very good. And we can use the motion in second.
That
And
fair.
so now we can go into voting. All in favor, is that right?
Well, any discussion on the motion?
Any
to
discussion
continue?
on the motion? Okay. All in favor of the motion to continue the public hearing to the December 19th, 2024 City Council meeting, please say aye. Aye.
All right.
Nay. Public hearing will be continued to December 19th, hearing no further discussion. This public hearing is now closed. Okay, and now at this time, the council will recess to conduct another public hearing regarding a request for a zoning code text amendment regarding the marijuana facility or medical marijuana facility in section 2536U3. Mr. Hessel, do you wish to enter any exhibits into the record?
I would, Mayor. Exhibit 1 is an affidavit of publication verifying pardon me, that notice of public hearing appeared in the St. Louis County. Exhibit 2 is an affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 3 is a memorandum from Jonathan Raish to the Planning and Zoning Commission concerning the staff-initiated text amendment for marijuana facility or medical marijuana facility. And Exhibit 4 is a report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated November 7, 2024, which by a vote of 7-0, the commission recommended approval of a city-initiated zoning code text amendment regarding a marijuana facility or medical marijuana facility as set forth in section 25-36U3 of the Code of Ordinances. And Exhibit 5 is the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kirkwood.
Good, thank you. Mr. Hawes, who will present this issue to the city?
That will be Planning and Development Services Director Jonathan Raish.
Good evening again. So this request is related to our regulations for marijuana facilities and medical marijuana facilities, and specifically Section 2536U3. And this is about the buffer requirement of 500 feet between facilities. The purpose of this proposed text amendment is to remove potential ambiguity that was identified by staff after discussion with the city attorney as well, after we received inquiries about locating marijuana-related businesses closer than 500 feet to each other. The staff reviewed the existing language and responded to those inquiries and believe that the proposals that were made would not meet the code. However, to remove this type of argument in the future, feel like the proposed changes would take some of the ambiguity away that the inquiries were arguing. So the recommendation is premised upon, it's important to know that it's premised upon staff's understanding that the city, when we originally went through this, so after Amendment 2 and Amendment 3 in 2018 and 2022, that legalized the constitutional amendments that legalized first medical marijuana and then recreational marijuana in 2022. When that first went through the city council, staff's understanding was that the city elected to provide a fairly high level restriction on these facilities towards the more restrictive end that's allowed by the constitutional amendments, while not being unduly burdensome, which is prohibited in the amendments. So this recommendation, again, is based upon that premise. If the council does not feel that way, then we can draft other language. So after various changes between 2018 and 2022, when recreational went in, the amount of categories of types of marijuana businesses increased significantly. So some of the restrictions and language that were written in 2018 were written with fewer categories. 2018 added obviously recreational, but it also added micro businesses under each category, and it really not only doubled, in some cases it kind of tripled the amount of types of licenses. And also in that time, the city did remove some of the restriction. We also require 1,000-foot distance from churches, schools, and daycares. Originally, we had the buffer requirement for parks, but that was ultimately not advised to be upheld. It wasn't really explicitly in the constitutional amendments, and so the council elected to remove those requirements. So, and my point in saying that is that with removing the restriction from the parks, it did open a few more properties, so more property became eligible, which between that and then the increase in types of licenses, staff has evaluated this language in light of those, knowing that there's more opportunities for these licenses and more comfortable that this language would not be unduly burdensome. So after those various changes, more properties being eligible, more types of license, what staff is recommending is what you see on the screen, removing that the 500 feet distance would only apply to facilities of the same type, meaning in that language strictly, it would be a dispensary would be 500 feet from a dispensary, but a dispensary wouldn't have to be 500 feet from a cultivation facility. So in removing that language, a dispensary would have to be 500 feet from a cultivation facility. Okay? Then and again, this is the ambiguity that we're, right? So we have interpreted this because of the intent and because of subsequent clauses in our ordinance. We have interpreted that this is the current regulation, but would remove any of that ambiguity. Then the second phrase, this section shall not prohibit one facility from holding multiple licenses. The original discussion in 2018 was again, the idea that a facility could potentially hold a cultivation license and a dispensary license at the same location as the same business, and that could be allowed. However, with the increased number of licenses, that poses a lot more challenging arguments in allowing different entities from holding licenses. One facility, sorry. So even stacking licenses. So there's just a lot more complicated that this language introduces, complication that this language introduces. And again, after discussion with the city attorney, we're recommending that be removed. Again, under the premise that we realize now there's more availability, more options for these, and we're not being, in our opinion, not being unduly burdensome by removing this additional allowance, I guess. So,
Let me just supplement that a little
Yep.
bit, Jonathan.
Yep.
This is a confusing subject because the marijuana constitutional amendment dealing with recreational marijuana is 38 pages long, and you have all sorts of people who are looking for every opportunity to open up a recreational marijuana facility, whether it be a dispensary or cultivation or some of the other micro businesses. So when we first adopted the language, we were only dealing with medical marijuana facilities, and it was easier to do that. And this of the same type, if memory serves me correctly, that was adopted for medical marijuana. And to me, it was pretty clear as to what we were talking about. But once the recreational marijuana facility came in, and we did look at it, I spent a lot of time looking at that. We stuck with that language because the way I interpreted the 38-page amendment, we would be okay. Okay? Others now have gone about, pardon me, let me also add that the Department of Human Health and Services have issued a number of regulations which we had not anticipated, which we would take issue with as well. So we spent a lot of time going back, premised upon the belief that this city council, like the prior city council, wanted to keep the restrictions as broad as we could with respect to additional medical marijuana facilities as well as recreational marijuana facilities. So based upon that premise, and because we're getting into we've had now 2 different debates, if you will, or in my opinion, what they're asking to do was not allowed under our ordinance when reading the constitutional amendment. Others disagreed with me. And again, we had that come up twice. So what we're really trying to do in the short run is make it neater, cleaner, and very specific. So if you read it now, it's very straightforward. So when we're talking about the medical or recreational marijuana facilities, they have to be located a minimum of 500 feet from another marijuana facility or medical marijuana facility, plain and simple. And we took out of the same type because, as Jonathan explained, when you got into the recreational marijuana facility, there's at least 8 different types that you could get into. Arguably 8 different types, because there's a micro business as well as a retail business. Again, I don't want to get into the details because it gets too complicated. So we're taking that out to make it abundantly clear. You can't be within 500 feet of another medical marijuana facility or marijuana facility.
Of any kind.
Of any kind. There we go.
Exactly. Regardless. And then we had language in there that Jonathan alluded to where you could have multiple licenses. And that made sense when we were talking about the medical marijuana. And it made sense, again, to us when we were talking about recreational marijuana under certain circumstances. Again, keep in mind, you're limited in zoning districts as to where you can have a marijuana facility. Okay? So in the B district, we thought we were okay, but in essence, someone has suggested that they could stack them. So if I want to have a cultivation facility and I'm limited to X number of square feet, 2,500 square feet, and I can only have, and I forgot what the number of marijuana plants you can have. Well, if I have a bigger facility, I can, in essence, have two of the same type in the same building. We thought that's not what we intended. So we're taking out that language about not prohibiting one facility from holding multiple licenses. I will tell you, if the constitutional amendment would allow that, we'll address that if and when it comes. I don't think it does. I would challenge them in court, again, assuming that that's the way this council wants to go. So it's a long way of saying we are trying to make sure that everybody understands that marijuana facilities cannot be within 500 feet of another one. And if you want to operate it, you get one license.
All right, now we'll go to questions, and I have one. Why 500 feet? Why not 1,000 like we have with the
The
churches, schools?
What the constitutional amendment, again, says that we can have reasonable regulations without outlawing, in effect, banning and outlawing marijuana facilities. So we did an analysis, and Jonathan, you did the analysis, so you may want to explain.
Yeah,
that,
so
but
yeah, we estimated, did a citywide map and provided buffers from all the churches, schools and daycares. And it really broke down to two, one area near Kirkwood Road in Manchester at that intersection. And then one along Leffingwell. And basically if you were to, on top, layered on top of that, if you were to, and I do have, if you were to double the distance between facilities, you're decreasing the number by probably about half, right? So the number, we have to always look at how many eligible facilities could be in the community. And it's just, it is a bit of a judgment call of what's reasonable. So right now with the 500 foot, my best estimate is, again, this is, call it best case or worst case scenario, depending on your opinion of it. But if the efficiency is optimized, we would be looking at maybe 3 around Kirkwood Road. And I don't want anybody to get, this is like, if they could pack it in and met every regulation, the maximum we'd be looking was about 3 in Kirkwood Road, Manchester Road area. And then I think best guess is maybe 4, maybe 5 around the Leffingwell area. And again, it's more of a judgment call of what we can defend to what's unduly burdensome for those. So allowing 2 in a community, I think we weren't comfortable, it seemed overly restrictive when.
It's a great question. It comes down to risk reward, if you will. Constitutional amendment is clear that you cannot effectively prohibit them, nor can you be unreasonably burdensome. Sounds like a lawyer, doesn't it? Meaning that
Yes.
that's a judgment call. And at the time we adopted this, again, we identified how many locations there were. There were not very many. And the staff recommended to the city council 500 feet, and the city council accepted that. If you all want to go to 1,000 feet, I'm not going to say that that is violative of the constitutional amendment, because we already have one. I'm prepared to defend, bottom line, I'm prepared to defend 1,000 feet if a majority of this council wants to do that.
1,000 feet, if I'm correct, Mr. Hessel, was for the buffering from schools and
Correct.
daycares. That number was in the constitutional amendments as the cap, basically, like that was explicitly in
So
there.
they picked that number.
They kind of set that bar of that's the maximum you can do.
Oh, that's right.
They didn't set that bar for buffering between.
Okay.
But when looking at other communities, it is a number that a lot of people settled on with 500 feet. It's also a number that communities have used for decades of other uses, similar. So it seems to be something that's held up over time, in general. But the reason, yeah, the 1,000 foot was, we were comfortable with it on the first buffer. It was explicitly in the amendment, the
That was
constitutional
the
amendments.
max we
Yeah,
could do.
as the, right.
So we selected the max for that. And then the other one is a judgment call because it doesn't say what the amount is.
Right.
One would assume, you apply logic to that amendment, which is not always fair, that 1,000 feet would be the max here, but it's really balancing it out and looking at a map and plotting out how many locations you could get within the city of Kirkwood based upon these restrictions. And is that unreasonably burdensome? That's how we got there.
What other questions?
Um,
Councilmember Jessetic.
So 1,000 feet is not unduly burdensome from schools and all that. So that's a pretty good number,
It's the maximum.
right? So the,
And again, you can only apply that 1,000 feet. That's the max we could
Right,
do,
right,
provided that you still allowed recreational marijuana facilities and medical marijuana facilities within your
so,
city.
so that's, they've in their amendment or their whatever, it was 1,000 feet. Tattoo parlors, we have 1,000 feet between tattoo parlors.
That's not subject to a constitutional amendment.
Okay, but we've done that. It's not unduly
Oh,
burdensome.
So they're not, yeah, so in our B2 district, they're required, but they're not required in a constitutional amendment. We could prohibit them.
Right,
yeah.
right. But again, doesn't appear to be burdensome. Just again, beyond, I'm not talking constitution, but our ordinance has put 1,000 in. So anyway, I was just making that point. And then does the.
Your point is we've used 1,000 feet on other things. That's
Yes,
true.
yes.
It's a
thank
nice
you
round
for-
number that we could
Thank
use.
you for clarifying my point because
Right.
sometimes I need help. And then also within the constitutional amendment, the cultivating and manufacturing, is that all allowed? I mean, when I think of the other dispensaries and I think of medical and retail and recreation as retail. So where does the allowance for growing so it all falls under their specific.
Right. Our definition of medical marijuana facility, if you turn to the definitions that we have there, includes all of them.
All of that. Okay.
Now, if the question is where we allow them, the dispensary, we don't allow cultivation and testing facilities, manufacturing in the Kirkwood Road, Manchester area. That's just dispensary.
That's dispensary.
So,
B,
right, in the
I
B3
see.
district, yeah, the li-
It included all of that.
Right.
So you'd have to make some effort to allow it.
correct.
So we did that by what districts we put those in.
Zoning districts and distances.
Mhm.
And so the manufacturing, cultivating, growing is allowed in only one of the districts?
in the I1 district.
I-1,
Mhm.
and that's got the 500-foot buffer, so that's not going to impact where we're selling it.
Correct.
So there's other
No, that's right.
variables in
Yep.
how we manage this issue. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No. Got it.
What other questions?
All right.
No further discussion. This here, public hearing is,
Yep,
oh,
yes.
no.
Audience.
Oh, do we have any,
Public.
Public.
any cards to speak?
Mayor and council, there are no requests for comment on this item.
Thank you. Now, hearing no further discussion, this public hearing is now closed. The bill will be on the December 19th council meeting agenda for first reading consideration. Now we'll move to public comments. Do
Yes.
you have any
Do you want me to, would you like me to
Yes,
read that? Okay.
yes.
The public comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the city council to listen to comments from citizens. It is not a question and answer session, and the city council will not respond to comments or answer questions during this period. The mayor may refer any matter brought up to the city council to the chief administrative officer or city clerk if action is needed.
Do we have any comment cards filled out?
Mayor and council, we have a few here. First is Craig Cannison.
Thank you for the chance to come before the council. Thank you all for all the time and effort you put in on behalf of all of us that live in Kirkwood. My name is Craig Canatzy. Lived in Kirkwood since 1969 when I got out of the military. Raised 3 kids here, all through the public schools, and I'm all in on Kirkwood. I am here to talk about our streets. I have been concerned about our streets for years. They are horrible. Thankfully, we got Geyer Road finally done. That was like the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Other roads are ridiculous. Manchester, not Manchester, Kirkwood Road, Big Bend, Washington. I could go down and just name probably 100 streets that are in dire need of repair. I'm well aware that the citizens passed a sales tax, and hopefully my numbers are close that I have. It's my understanding that 1.8 million out of our general budget goes for roads every year. It's also my understanding that the sales tax is going to generate about 2.2 million per year. If my math is correct, that's $4 million a year for our roads. If you keep all the money in there. What I mean by that is now that we have 2.2 coming in from additional sales tax, don't take money out of the fund that goes for roads now. Spend all 4 million on our roads. Now, if that's a 15-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, that's $60 million. At the end of 15 years, we should have the best roads in the Midwest. And I'm hoping that that is the way this council will go. Because I'm not the only one. You know, in the recent survey of our community, roads were the #1 concern. So please address them. Spend every penny that we have dedicated to roads for roads and sidewalks, because it is an Achilles heel on our community. And, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time again, and spend that money on roads. Thanks.
Craig.
Ed Golderman.
Ed Golderman, 10771K Berry Drive, a little bit south. And when I get back on my bus to head home tonight, I will pass 7 places in a row that I can buy my gummies and my whatever else you buy in those places. So I'm kind of with you on being a little bit cautious about those things. We've talked about sidewalks to nowhere and marijuana. I want to talk about buses to somewhere. Years ago, Bi-State Transit just threw South County away and forgot about us, literally, figuratively. Never was going to give us another thought as far as I was observing that. So a year ago, June, I got out of my apartment and I kind of went to work, as sometimes I tend to go to work. A little bit of progress. The county just gave Bi-State $200 million without many restrictions or even asking for anything. However, this Monday, we have 2 of 25 improvements have an impact on Kirkwood. Any person in Kirkwood can now get on the 49 and transfer at Watson Road and go to Fenton for any reason, whatever. That to me is a very good thing. It's a good thing for Kirkwood. It's a good thing for Crestwood. It's a good thing for even Sunset Hills, even people who drive, who don't much care about people who need to ride buses. The other thing is, if you go a little farther, where I would get on at Tesson Ferry and Lindbergh, I can go to my 3 doctors and Ileana's restaurant. Or I can go all the way up to Mercy, or I can go to Deerberg's Plaza. Does this calm traffic? You bet it calms traffic. Does this get people to jobs who sometimes have had to take 3 hours, 3 hours. I ride with people and it takes them 3 hours to get to work. I have pushed Bi-State really, really hard. And I'm telling them that they need revenue from South County to pay for the hundreds of millions of dollars they're throwing north and into the Green Line. I would suggest that you engage and start watching this transportation situations. I've seen the harm it's done to Limay in those areas, the accidents, the problems, the lack
Mr.
of,
Goldsman, make your
Yeah.
last point, please.
the what?
Go ahead and make your last point.
My last point is I'm going to try to get the full 46 back from Shrewsbury. And that's my last point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any Layton?
Good evening. Oh. Sorry, I think I took her pen too. Thank you for hearing me this evening. This is way out of my comfort zone, so I'm going to just read what I have written. My name is Penny Layton. I gotta put my glasses on. I live in a condo at 630 Candleberry Court, Apartment A. I've been a resident at that place for approximately 8 years. This past June, a woman by the name of Pamela Sesti took possession of Unit D in our building, and it has been a nightmare from then on and continues to be. She does not have an occupancy permit and has had 3 notices on her door to that fact, but she keeps taking them down. The inspectors have stopped by, but she will not open the door for them. She has moved in completely along with her pit bull type dog, which is not allowed, that barks incessantly. She was moving things again at 10 o'clock in the night on November 30th, last Saturday night. And the people that were helping her stole 2 of our security cameras down. And we have the footage and have turned that over to the police. We've had to call the police on numerous occasions because if you get in her way, she will become belligerent and verbally abusive. When we have asked her not to slam doors, she goes berserk and she slams all of the doors, the basement doors, the condo door, front door, back door. She smokes heavily, which is not allowed, and our building now reeks of cigarette smoke. She has paid 0 monthly assessments, 0 utilities. The condo association has had to put the gas and electric in their name because we cannot risk having frozen pipes. She's very cunning. She usually leaves late in the afternoon and then shows up sometime in the middle of the night. Our neighbor, Sandy Smith, who's not here this evening, she's 88 years old. She lives in the Unit B right below this woman. She has had to move to her son's because she's in such distress. She cannot get away from the incessant barking of the dog and her stomping around on the floor. She is terrified of this woman. We are all afraid of her. She's dangerous. She had, I'm sorry. I would hope that the city can do all they can to help us get rid of this person. I never thought, I love Kirkwood. I never, ever thought I'd have to be here saying this about someone. Now, I will tell you that I want to thank Mayor Gibbons for listening to a much longer version of what I'm telling you tonight. And also for Officer Orlando for taking a report that I had to give on November 30th after I came home from the Fox Theater at 10 o'clock in the evening on Saturday. And I tried to come in the front door and she kept pushing the door closed to not let me in. And then, of course, got verbally abusive again. And that's when they had moved in more things. And that's when they took down the security cameras, which I had purchased. And so I went with my partner to the police department, and Officer Orlando was very helpful. He took all the information. I did file charges. And
Penny, go
he
ahead and
did
make
come
your
by with
last-
another police officer.
Make your last comment.
Oh,
Penny.
okay. Last evening, Officer Orlando came with another policeman, and, but she wasn't home. But they did hear the dogs barking. So anyway, I just want to thank you for hearing me. This is an untenable situation, and I'm afraid that you have 3 wonderful citizens of Kirkwood, well, 4 because one's a couple, that may have to move because of her if she doesn't get out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Penny.
Lynn Schreier.
Hi, my name is, give me a second here and I'll be super quick. I'm Penny's partner. She's covered much of the material that I was gonna cover, so, and the mayor here has been nice enough to hear the long version of this story. What we really want here is help for 4 elderly citizens of your community. What you have in front of you is a picture. There's a little handout that I made for all of you. There's a picture of one of the guys that's on the tape. This guy is a heroin dealer that just got out of jail. He's on the tape, taking down the cameras. This is right across the street from the Magic House. Guys, I don't think you want this in your neighborhood. This guy has a parole officer, I'm sure. And he can identify the guy that actually took the camera down, which is yet to be identified. What we're asking for is let me swap papers here. His name is Jeffrey Hahn, convicted felon, parole officer somewhere. Should be able, I'm sure, with a little proper English from the parole officer to identify his accomplice. I spoke to Pat Geringer's office and there's a 5-step process between the police department and him actually taking an action, and his action will only be to retrieve the $250 that were out for the cameras. That's about all they can do. But what we're doing is we've gone to the state, we've asked them to come in for elder abuse, which everybody is elderly here, and everybody, I mean, you've got 3 grandmas that would like to go home for Christmas. That's 20 days from now. Can we get 3 grandmas home for Christmas? Let's do what we can. You know, it's, that's basically our goal. Penny has covered everything else that's here. The police officer's been amazing. You've been amazing to listen through all this mess. Just do what you can to speed up that 5-step process. We're going to ask for a restraining order for these 2 guys from being in our building, but we can't ask for the restraining order until we know who the second guy is. Han is one of them. We should be able to get a restraining order from this guy to come in our building. That seems like a reasonable request, but it would be great if we could get the other guy identified in the next 20 days and get restraining orders on these people. That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, there are no additional requests for comment at this time.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move into the consent agenda now. Motion and a second for the consent agenda.
Motion.
Okay. And then, we need, someone needs to request to remove item B.
I'll request to move item B.
And that will go to the end of new business. Okay. Is there a motion in this?
Nope, we don't, no, now you just, ask if there's any discussion.
Oh, any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay. No, okay, then, let's see. All in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right. Now we'll move into unfinished business. Bill 11055A.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance amending the provisions of the Municipal Code, Chapter 25, zoning and subdivision for garage design and setback in residential districts in Section 25-48F in the RMM Missing Middle Residential District.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on Bill 11055A? Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Bill 11056.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance changing the zoning from R5 multifamily residential district to RMM Missing Middle Residential District on the property known as 223 West Monroe Avenue, being an approximately 0.21 acre site on the north side of West Monroe Avenue, and directing such change in the zoning district map.
Are there any questions or comments on Bill 11056? I want to make one comment. I did speak to somebody that lives in the condos right next door, and they are thrilled with this. They said that property's been empty for a long, long time, and that it gets mowed maybe 3 times in the summer. So, any other discussion or comments? Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker? Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Bill 11057.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission Surface Transportation Block Grant Program Supplemental Agreement Number 2 for the awarded Surface Transportation Program STP 5502612 Lindeman Road Improvement Project by increasing the federal grant surface transportation funds amount by $320,417 for a new total amount of project costs to be reimbursed by 80% by federal share in the amount not to exceed of $1,670,154.
Are there any questions or comments on Bill 11057? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker? Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Bill 11058.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission Surface Transportation Block Grant Program Supplemental Agreement Number 2 for the awarded Surface Transportation Program STP 5502610 West Essex Reconstruction Project by increasing the federal grant surface transportation funds amount by $360,480 for a new total amount of project costs to be reimbursed by 80% federal share in the amount not to exceed of $1,878,080.
Are there any questions or comments on Bill 11058? Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker? Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Bill 11059.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance appropriating $597,011 from the general fund balance to the Police Department Machinery and Equipment account, accepting the grant of Missouri Department of Public Safety in the amount of $656,610.97, and accepting the proposal from Motorola Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $656,610.97 pursuant to Johnson County, Kansas Cooperative Contract for the purchase of new radios for the police department, with 50% of the funds to be reimbursed by grant share and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Are there any questions or comments on Bill 11059? Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker, Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek,
Yes.
Councilmember McLean.
Yes.
Very good. We now move to new business. Bill 11056, I'm sorry, 11060.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance approving a major site plan and granting an amendment to the special use permit for vehicle sale and rental at 10-525 and 10-725 Manchester Road, Lufuse Toyota, subject to certain conditions.
Do I have a motion and second to accept Bill 11060 for the first reading approval?
Motion.
Second.
Very good. Any questions or comments on this bill?
I have one. Mayor.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Thank you. I'd like to propose a amendment to the ordinance regarding the fencing along the residential to the business property line along the entire Blue Fuse area to be of concrete construction or something like that. And Jonathan, I've talked to him today, and he would be better to explain to you what I'm looking for fencing along that route, if Jonathan would like to. Issues. There you go. Please.
Mayor, we'll need to get us a second on that before we have discussion.
Oh, okay.
Second.
So that was actually a motion.
Yes.
And we have a second.
Mhm.
I guess maybe just to clarify the motion so I think what we're looking at is subsection 4 of section 1 for the existing rear fence shall be replaced, current language replaced with a sound mitigating site-proof fence not less than 8 feet in height and made of Simtech or comparable composite product. It goes on to say where the location is, but it would be amending that clause is to say 8 feet in height and cementitious, rather than made of Simtech or comparable composite product. Is that accurate, Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
What was
That's
the
what I'm
word
looking.
you used?
Cementitious, so cement.
Cement.
So
It's similar like we have behind the BP over in Manchester, like behind Walgreens now. The only other caveat I'd like to put in there also is that if there's a repair that needs to be done, that it gets repaired like for like, unlike what is going on at Walgreens where part of it fell down and they brought somebody in, just put cinder blocks up, it looks like. So I'd like it to stay matching. That's just me.
So that adding to the motion?
Yeah,
That was
it would
second.
be, it would be.
It is adding to his pending motion, so second to the new motion, which is just somewhere in here shall be maintained appropriately as a cementation.
Do I have a second? Okay. Now do we vote on,
Oh, still discussion.
so
We have
All
we have
one.
questions?
okay. Yes,
The-
question.
Is the cementatious fence more soundproof than the Simtech?
I can't tell you exactly. I would assume so. I can tell you what the Simtech fence, their spec show is that it blocks 90, it's either 95 or 98% of direct sound.
I guess the question maybe is with the Councilman Schaefer is,
Pardon me?
why the cementatious as opposed to Simtech?
Because I'm trying to match kind of like what went on over at Walgreens, and that's been up 30 years. And I'm trying to have some longevity, so if this is our time to ask Lou Fuse to put up what we're looking for, that's got some longevity to it. That's really where I'm after.
You done any research or questions as far as the sound barrier or anything like that?
I have not. I leave that to staff who's kind of helping with that.
I mean, the Simtech fences, you know, that's what Councilmember Schaefer is correct, that the Mobile on the Run, the BB on Manchester, the Walgreens, those are the ones that I can think of offhand that were true cementitious fence that were installed. Again, that's similar to what's put along highways, right? So the Simtech fence blocks 98% of direct sound and lowers by 26 decibels, which is significant. So in recent years, because Simtech is a newer fence, it has been used more in commercial application around Kirkwood, and I'm not trying to.
Nope.
So, I mean, they do offer quite a bit of sound attenuation as well. But to Councilman's point, I saw something after he contacted me today, concrete can last 50 to 100 years, the cementitious fences. So, you know, I don't know that another product could do that. Well, I don't want to make, that's I think answering your question, I think.
Okay, your motion is, because it's similar to what is elsewhere in Kirkwood.
Correct.
And the longevity of it.
Correct.
Okay, makes sense. That's for good common sense solution.
Common sense thing again. There we are. Look at that.
I was talking to Mr. Hessel.
Go on.
Any other questions, discuss? Yes.
Yeah, well, I see where we're going with this, and we've talked about the cementitious fences for many, many years. From what I understand, there is a price difference, so it's an additional cost burden to the business. The Simtech, again, most of the sound is not going to go through it. I'm a little hesitant to just say this is the direction we want to go because it is more expensive.
Sure.
So that's my only thoughts. The Simtech works well. Now, the Walgreens, yeah, but that's a whole other subject.
Well, and
Yeah.
we're looking at longevity. That's what I'm
We are.
looking at.
And the Simtech has longevity too.
Right,
so
but not to the extent of a,
not to the extent, but there's a cost difference.
for
Yeah.
sure is. Yeah,
Not over the long run, because you have to repair the symptom.
exactly.
Yeah, you might have to.
And then we don't have any arguments with neighbors and business because you've got a permanent buffer for 50 years. Right.
More comments or just, okay, now we're voting on the motion. right?
Yeah, let me be clear though as to what section 1, subsection 4, according to what I heard as the motion, would now read, the existing rear fence shall be replaced with a sound mitigating and site-proof cementitious fence not less than 8 feet in height and shall be maintained as a cementitious fence. I think that's what I heard.
If I make one
kinda
suggestion,
redundant.
well, the maintained, so I think his concern was the design of it. So like a concrete block would still be considered cementitious.
Okay.
So what I had was, and shall be maintained with a consistent design. Is that acceptable?
Better put.
Okay.
Hmm.
Because people will play games with that.
Okay.
Already have the motion in a second. I was just clarifying the language. So if you want to allow someone in the audience to speak, you need to move to waive Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, we're going to move to waive Robert's Rules of Order right now so that Mr. Hughes, I
Second.
think,
Seconded.
okay. He
All in favor?
indicated he might want to say,
Aye.
all in favor? Okay, okay.
Thank you very much for
Sure.
being with us tonight. So the city code requires a Simtech fence, I believe. That's what's required in the code. And we've been through this process now for about 5 months, and we've never once been told to put up a wall, a cement wall. When I think of cement wall, I think of concrete block that is not a fence, that's a brick wall. So I guess my question is, when you say cementitious fence, do you mean a Simtech-like fence that's built of concrete platters, or do you mean
Jack.
of the same height as the Simtech fence? So when did this come into play versus the last P and Z and the first city council? This is my question, because we've never heard of this until tonight, and I think it'd be fair to find out the rationale behind that.
I think we had a council member that wanted it, introduced it tonight. So
Okay.
that's like you heard and all of us heard was.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, if I have to run numbers on what that costs, but, you know, at this stage of the game, we're so far gone, so I guess we'll have to, you know, work with what you guys want to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Amend.
a vote on the motion to amend. All in
Favor, say aye.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay?
Nay.
Motion passes, to amend passes. Now we,
Back on the motion to accept the amended bill
Right.
for first
Okay.
reading approval.
okay.
Accept Bill 11060 as amended.
All in favor of first reading approval of Bill 11060, please say aye.
As amended.
Amended.
Aye.
All opposed, nay? Okay. Bill 11060 has passed first reading approval. Bill 11061.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance amending the provisions of the Municipal Code, Chapter 25, zoning and subdivision for a zoning code text amendment to change the definition of a tattoo studio to also include body piercing, to add tattoo body piercing studio as a special use in the B3 Highway Business District, and to change the use-specific standards for tattoo body piercing studio.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept Bill 11061 for first reading approval?
Motion.
Second.
Discussions, questions?
Anybody else? I'll start. Again, you know, the plan that was presented to us looked lovely, but my concern continues to be changing the code or the zoning district allowable for everybody in that area, in that district. So I continue, you know, it's allowed in B2.
Bless you.
It's, you know, I don't have a problem with it going tattoo and body piercing. But I do have a problem with it being allowable in B3. We've got it allowable in B2. So, you know, I'm not in favor of this. We do have an area, you know, we do have a code that works, or zoning subdivision that works. And I have concerns about opening it up to another district.
I kinda feel
Councilmember
the same way.
McLean.
Feels, I'm sorry. Were we picking winners and losers by allowing someone to? Already have it in B2. Project, I think she'll do great wherever she goes. But I'm just, because it's already allowed in B2.
Thank you. Any additional comments? I am not in favor of this bill either, and I do want to address the applicant directly because I think she is an absolutely lovely person and a Kirkwood resident. But I think someone said to me today that this is kind of spot zoning to change where we allow certain businesses to go. Just doesn't seem like a good idea to me. So we'll a motion to, wait. We'll wait, and I have to vote on it, right? We vote on it. Okay, well, let's waive Robert's Rules of Order. Motion is
I
second.
second.
Okay. Did you want to say something? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
Vote
indicated.
too.
Okay. She
We don't need to?
doesn't. We don't need to.
You can just
Okay.
withdraw that.
Okay, I withdraw them,
Okay.
that motion. All right. Any other comments? Right. All in favor of first reading approval of Bill 11062, please say aye.
One.
I'm sorry, 61. I got ahead of myself. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
If the Bill 11061 has failed. Bill 11062.
In light of that, Mayor, Bill 11062 is a moot point because that's obviously granting a special use premised upon the fact that there's a change in the zoning code. So no further action needs to be taken with respect to Bill 11062, and the minutes should simply reflect that that's being removed from the agenda as being a moot point.
So we move to Bill 11063.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance adopting a revised City of Kirkwood classification and pay plan effective January 6, 2025.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept Bill 11063?
Motion.
Second.
Very good. Any questions or comments?
I do.
Yes, Councilmember Jessup.
So Russ,
Mhm.
we budgeted 1% at the beginning of the budget year for this.
It's
So
actually
we-
1.5%
One
is
and a
in the
half.
budget. That's correct.
Okay, does this change the ranges on the on the pay classifications?
No, it doesn't change the ranges. I'm sorry, it increases, it slides all of the ranges up. I'm sorry.
Okay, so were those already slid up when we passed the one and a slid up? Is that proper English? Did they move up when the budget was passed for 1.5?
No, not at that time. They adjust only once a year, and that's in January.
Okay.
The ranges.
They don't adjust at the budget approval process?
They did this past year because council changed how the budget, the 65th percentile the 55th to the 65th percentile.
So is the 1.5 in there already, or is that a different? So the 1.5 was not.
Has
adjusted,
not been,
which-
has not, the adjustment has not occurred for 1.5 yet. That is correct.
All right, so so you only, again, I'm a little confused why we don't make that adjustment at the beginning of the year and then we make it now. Because if we didn't agree to this, what would you do? I mean, you would pay them that 1.5, but you wouldn't adjust the pay range?
Right. If council did not agree on this adjustment that's proposed right now, we would adjust the pay ranges by 1.5 per the budget,
So you'd still adjust the pay range?
by
but we
1.5, which
but
is
we
in the
wouldn't
budget.
Vote on the pay range? We
Correct.
would just,
Well, you'd have to adjust, you would have to vote on the adjusted pay ranges or classification plan. That is correct, to
You don't
fulfill
need it
what's in the budget.
at budget. Okay. And then, so is it safe to say over the last 10 years, have these pay ranges adjusted 20 to 30% based on CPI adjustments?
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess over the past 20 to,
Like 10 years, if we're adjusting so every adjustment, because we do like when you do a market.
Right.
Market one, the pay ranges get adjusted.
they do.
But on CPI, so we do an adjustment to the pay range.
Mhm.
Again, if we've done a 2 to 3% CPI adjustment over every year, that's increase in those pay range.
Yes, yes, under that scenario, at 2 to 3%, then over 10 years could be 20 to 30%.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay. Roll call?
Nope, it's first reading, so all
Sorry,
in
sorry,
favor?
first reading. All in favor of first reading approval of Bill 11063, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Bill 11063 has passed first reading approval. Resolution 1161, 2024.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the grant of Missouri Department of Health and Human Services in the amount of $104,002.64 and accepting the proposal from Motorola Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $104,002.64 pursuant to Johnson County, Kansas cooperative contract for the purchase of 14 new radios for the fire department, with 90% of the funds to be reimbursed by grant share, and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept Resolution 161, 2024 as read?
Motion.
Are there any questions or comments?
Great deal.
All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Great. Resolution 161, 2024 has passed. Resolution 162, 2024.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution amending the contract with J.W. Bomarito Construction by increasing the contract amount by $2,917.64 for a new total not to exceed amount of $203,001.64 for the North Kirkwood Road Water Main Replacement Project and authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into an amended contract.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept Resolution 162, 2024?
Motion.
Very good, thank you. Is there are there any questions or comments? Nothing?
And on that one,
Schaefer?
I've looked at it.
Okay,
Mhm.
any questions or
Yep.
comments? Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Resolution 162, 2024 has passed. Resolution 163, 2024.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the bid of Gateway Landworks for brush removal and maintenance on an as-needed basis in the amount of $105,602 for the initial work for an initial term of 12 months with the option to renew for up to 4 additional 12-month terms, pending budgetary approval, and authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept Resolution 163, 2024 as read?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, great, thank you. Any comments or questions?
I have a question. On the as-needed basis, I'm not sure what that means. I mean, does somebody call them out and say, the grass is too tall, please cut it, or how's a contract like this work?
So I think Chris can come up and answer that question.
I'll try to address it, but I've brought our forester here, if I can't address it for you, but we do have a list of sites throughout Kirkwood that we maintain. And as time goes by, sometimes we add sites, or subtract sites. And so that there's some different sites in that respect.
But the as needed, I mean, are they cutting grass? Is that what they're doing, or are they?
Now, this is like clearing honeysuckle, just clearing, so mowing is different than,
This isn't mowing.
no, this is
Ah, okay.
brush. This is brush, like honeysuckle. Okay.
Okay. You guys are comfortable with it. I am.
Question.
Yes, Councilmember Schaefer.
Can't run away yet. Does this cover anything like if the building commissioner writes some place up that needs to be maintained and obviously the homeowner's not? Do they go in underneath this part of the contract to maintain that for the city? And then back bill, is that part of this, or do we use public works people for that, or how does that work?
Yes, so if it would be part of this, we could use this contractor to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're the one that makes that decision, or the forester makes that decision on where
Well,
the people go?
I'm pretty sure that lands with police first.
Sure.
And then it goes over to Public Works to
Yeah.
address it if necessary.
Perfect.
Any other questions? No, okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Resolution 163, 2024 has passed. Resolution 164, 2024.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution appointing Mayor Liz Givens and Councilmember Al Reinecker to the Transportation Development District Board.
Do I have a motion and a second? Al, I don't think you should.
Motion.
I'll second.
Okay, very
We have a
good.
discussion on this?
Yes,
Yes, let's.
Talk about this.
go ahead and discuss.
Can I leave the
Any questions, discussion? Okay.
Full stop.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Reinecker, Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Jack Sadek,
Yes.
Councilmember McLean.
Yes.
Resolution 164, 2024 has passed.
Now
Okay, so now the consent agenda.
we'll need a motion and a second to approve Resolution 160, 2024. And then Russ will read the, say Resolution 160, 2024. Russ will read the title.
Okay, Resolution 160, 2024, please.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the parking permit fees for the Downtown Special Business District in accordance with Section 14-334-2 of the Kirkwood Municipal Code of Ordinances for 2025.
Okay. Okay,
Information.
a motion is second on the bill. No,
Straight up motion, a second to continue. I don't know what I was thinking.
okay.
I apologize.
So we want to continue.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to
okay, go ahead.
continue.
I'm moving to continue the bill and I need a motion, need a second.
Second.
Okay, and do we do just a
On a motion?
on a motion? Okay, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the bill will be
Continue to December
to
19th.
December 19th. All right. Now we're on council member reports, am I correct? Any council member reports? Okay,
Oh, Mayor.
yes.
This week, the city was at Kirkwood High School for our Safer Routes to School initiative. We got a lot of good feedback from the public that showed up. It was kind of chilly, so might have had a better turnout if it was a little warmer, but we encourage folks to complete the survey, to provide their feedback. We're trying to implement safer routes, safer continued connectivity for all of the city of Kirkwood. And it's very important that now's the time to make your voices heard.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Chief Administrative Officer, report.
I have nothing to report at this time, Mayor.
Great, thank you. City report.
First up, I'd like to applaud the city council for the passage of resolution 164, 2024 by appointing you and Al to the TDD board. As I indicated at the prior meeting, we're moving forward with all the steps that are necessary to get the TDD formed. Obviously, the appointment of the board members is critical. We will be before Judge Stewart out in St. Louis County Circuit Court on Tuesday, December 17th for a hearing. We've already submitted the motion for declaratory judgment and a proposed order for him to sign. I'm very optimistic that he will sign that order on that morning or shortly thereafter, which means that, and as part of that, he will order that the board meet on a particular day. So I'm asking staff to talk to the SBD to make sure that they appoint their 2 board members before I go to court on December 17th. And then the 4 of you and Al and the 2 SBD members pick a date. It has to be within 30 days of the December 17th hearing. So on or before January 16th, you need to schedule a hearing because that will be part of the order. So pick a convenient date and time, and I'll insert that information into the order that I fully anticipate will be issued. And then we're 90+% of the way down the road, 95% of the way down the road. There'll be some other things that we have to take care of within the board itself. It won't require any further action of this city council, won't require any further action of the court. So we'll be in good shape to move forward. as you have announced previously, Mayor, that's all good news. Unfortunately, we won't realize those funds until 2026 from a practical standpoint. So as we heard from a citizen today, everybody's anxious for us to get the money and spend the money. And I think we're all sharing that feeling, but the money won't be coming until 2026.
Okay, city clerk report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. I will start with the certified election results of the November 5th, 2024 election. First for Proposition R, for yes votes, there were 10,787 votes. For no, there were 6,159. For total votes cast, 16,946. For Proposition T, there were 11,499 yes votes, 6,212 no votes, for a total votes cast of 17,712 on that proposition. Then I will also report on scheduled upcoming public hearings. We have a public hearing on December 9th for a request for a zoning code text amendment to change the size allowance in the zoning code section 25-42I and in the use specific standards in the zoning code sections 25-45G and 25-45H relating to accessory structures in residential zoning districts, as well as the continued public hearing from this evening for a request for a zoning code text amendment on the color temperature of outdoor lighting under section 25-52. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Seeing no further business, this meeting is now adjourned. The regular meeting schedule, next regular meeting scheduled is